Welcome to the Crimeycade podcasters. Boy, I just barely start and already the star of the show has crashed the stream before I even start. It's like he tried to escape the shot before he got caught on camera. But anyway, welcome in. This is episode, 56. 56 of the Crimeycade. And another week. And there's plenty of news that went on the last few days. And hide this. Well, let's get through it because we have a hot guest here tonight. Let's get this thing going. Last week, our guest was Zachary Kane of the Nonsense Power Hour. Wrestling fan and fellow gamer, and since he was on the program, some more of his videos did get posted up. The one I'm looking for still remains to be the content that was shot with me, so I'm still waiting for that to make an appearance. But he posted one of his playthroughs on Crazy Taxi, and then posted a new video today about Time Crisis 5. Which that game's been out for a number of years, and he made his way down to Dave & Buster's. But a little bit of news upcoming about something that's going to be coming this spring. In fact, I might as well just share it now. Announced today, it was reported that Legends Entertainment will be coming to Springfield this winter. So we already got a Malibu Jack's. Pizza Ranch added Fun Zone. We have a Fun Kiddo. We got Dumb Records and Chuck E. Cheese, but now we're going to have a Legends Entertainment. Who said the arcades were dead? Springfield, getting the arcades in here. Those game rooms. And now we're going to have another one. And this is going to be kind of like Malibu Jack's, except there's going to be more arcade games. They say there's going to be at least 100 arcade games besides bowling and whatever else. Kind of like another form of Dave & Buster's. So that's coming this winter. I'm excited, and I'd like to see how this turns out. Now, Malibu Jack's is probably going to be a little bit worried here because I don't know. Malibu Jack's has a lot more space that they're not utilizing, and I think that was a mistake on their part. But they're also kind of waiting. They were giving it time to see how the public would patronize Malibu Jack's, but they need to step up the game pretty quick because they're going to have some significant competition coming their way in a short amount of time if all the other two places I mentioned, Fun Kiddo and Fun Zone inside Pizza Ranch, isn't giving them some run of the money. All right. If you haven't seen the interview is still on Twitch, and this guy's about ready to jump in my lap. Cody's about to jump in my lap. Oh, anyway, let's keep going here. Need everybody to follow the Crimeycade podcast because I am on Facebook as well. I'm posting updates in there, and I have more followers on Twitch than I do on the Facebook page. So follow me now at facebook.com/Crimeycade. I need 100 followers to co-stream on this platform besides Twitch. And here he is, the star of the show, Cody, the Crasher. As usual. Anyway. Illinois GameCon is in the books. And, so my reaction to Illinois GameCon, I have posted video walkthrough. I have to say, it definitely was well attended. I have to confess I didn't have as much fun this year as I did last year, and I think multiple factors that has nothing to do with the convention itself. I was just plain dead tired. I had to get up about a little after 6 to drive up to Bloomington to get in there for the very important gamer. So they opened the doors for the VIGs at 8 in the morning. And yeah, sleep deficit played a factor. In fact, I went home a little after 3 because I was just, oh, I was just needing to go back to bed and take a nap, basically. Uh, Also, and this is not the control of the organizers. I don't think anything beat last year or the year before that. I know last year, and I'm gonna have to get the timeline right. And I may have to do that with my guest, getting the timeline right. There's some key people that were there last year that I was missing this year, and uh, the people that would have attended other conventions. So, I mean, the same people can't be there every year, but I was missing them this year. So, I do want to show one thing. So, did I buy anything this time? I didn't buy anything in Midwest Gaming Classic. So, the only thing I bought was this bootleg cartridge, 501. So, supposedly 500 Nintendo games, although I think a lot of them are going to be duplicates with some hacks involved. I haven't had much time to explore this cartridge. So plus I'm also in the midst of an arcade restore project, which I haven't really gotten into. I did something last night with it. I replaced two of the locks that I didn't have keys for. That's it. That's all I got done with it last night, but oh well. The Switch 2 in 4 days sold 3.5 million consoles. I don't know. 3.5 million. They say it's one of the best selling consoles of all time. Well, I know there was reports of screens being damaged by careless stores stapling receipts to the front of the box, ended up puncturing through the packaging all the way down to the screen and puncturing the screen. I mean, that is utterly ridiculous. Usually you would just staple on the side of the box, not the front. But that was just utterly careless. You do it off to the side, not in the middle of the box. Certainly the purchaser probably certainly wasn't happy about that and their box being damaged. So I don't know. Let's see how things progress. And did you know there was a video game strike? Did you know that? I didn't know that. I didn't know there was a strike going on. Incredible. Well, the Screen Actors Guild gets a deal, and apparently the main point of contention was artificial intelligence replacing them, but they got a deal. But I don't think anybody noticed that there was a strike. Personally, I'm certainly not buying the games that they've been cranking out lately. I'm going to ask our guest later on about maybe the modern games versus past games, because the technology has evolved, but the quality of games have not. Had some real stinkers lately, but these AAA studios spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a game, and people aren't buying them. And there's a reason for that. All right, next weekend is the Blade Wars Tournament Fight Fest, World Combat 11, on June 20th at 5 o'clock. Street Fighter 6, Saturday the 21st at 1 p.m. Tekken 8 at 1 p.m. on Sunday the 22nd. 9109 Ogden Avenue. That's away from the arcade, a block or two, a block or two down the street. And if you can make it for the Blade Wars Fight Fest, yeah, Nora Vale is the champion. He'll be defending that title, I believe, this weekend. Can he retain? That's the question. The 4-time champion, the belt is on the line. Also that weekend is the Southern Fried Gaming Expo in Atlanta, Georgia. If you're down in Atlanta, and I've had the organizer on this pod sometime months ago. If you can make it, check it out. If you can't go to the Bloody Wars tournament. Also, Arcade Animals is going to be taping new episodes in July. That's in North Carolina. This is they are taking auditions over the phone. So you want to call that number. Call this number. 929. Well, actually, way cool. 485. Write down your promo. Practice your promo. Call the number. Cut your promo on the phone. Who knows? You might be chosen as a contestant to go out to Winston-Salem, North Carolina on July 13th and play Starcade, the modern version called Arcade Animals. Not looking like I'm going to get the call. It'd be the chance of a lifetime for me, opportunity of a lifetime for me if I got on this show. But I'm sponsoring one of the prizes on one of the episodes. So, and that was with her Kickstarter project. So, and Southeast Game Exchange 2025, July 18th through 20th in Greenville, South Carolina. I had the organizer of this convention on my pod. As you can see, Coney Dennison was booked for this event after something that went down at the Game and Geek Expo. I'll be asking about what happened over there in Raleigh, North Carolina later on. And Missouri Game Con number 9 be on July 26, 2025. I will be there. I wonder if our guest will be there. I'll have to ask him. And T20, the big one. The 11th annual T20 tournament, August 8th through 10th. Galloping Ghost Reproductions. They're taking your registrations now. $50 entry fee. That gets you 3 days at Galloping Ghost Arcade. So you can play in the tournament, go to the arcade, play arcade games the rest of the night. It's a 3-day. You're getting a 3-day pass for the cost of a 2-day pass. Can't beat it. So if you're going to be in the Chicago area and you're an arcader, register and participate in this tournament. I have declared myself the first entry into the T20 tournament for the 11th annual, and who knows what they're going to put in this tournament? Are they going to do a side tournament this year? Are they going to do? They did 21 games last year. How many games are they going to do this year? 20 new games again? 21 new games again? Maybe 22 new games. Who knows? All right. And scoring update. Yes, I don't want to keep my guests waiting, but I got to go through this. New scores at the Goblin Ghost Arcade. Brandon Travis has one CC'd. Super Don Quixote. That's the Laserdisc game that they just released over a week ago. Impressive score, breaking 600,000. Andrew Owasco takes the house high at Parodius Explosive Breaker. Sand Scorpion, which I had. That was one of my scores. Although somebody else took it for in between there. Brian Wasberg took Star Wars, the arcade game, 42,000. Tony DeRose took the New Zealand Story. Michael Smith took Grid Seeker. I was trying to get that score before I went home the last time I was up there. Titus Herring, a newcomer, gets a faster time at Initial D. Pete Hahn, the great Pete Hahn, returns to Galloping Ghost Arcade and takes the house high for Blade Master. I think 1CC'd it. He needs to enter T20 this year. Pete Hahn needs to enter T20. But he so far has declined to enter the T20 tournament. So we'll have to see. Will he do it this time? We'll see. And just today, verified, A-Train, Aaron. Wasilewski, I can't pronounce it. A-Train almost gets 1 point for million points. A Gunsmoke, I believe that's a 1CC. That was verified today. And the big score of them all, and I'm proud to announce this because I'm linked to this. Paul, Mega Retroman Tessie has upped the score at the 1991 Nintendo Campus Challenge, breaching 33 million points. Earlier, the record was a little more than 26 million. But Paul found a way to get that score even higher. And he's not done. There's a few more points he can get. There are a few more points possible. This score is not going to stay as it is. It's going to go a little bit higher in the next few weeks. And when it happens, I'll be there to witness it live as I did for this score when he did it just last Saturday. Yeah, after I got home from the Illinois Game Con, he did this run. And congratulations to Paul Tessie, the champion of the Classic Nintendo Competition cartridges. And I got to stall a little bit because our guest just walked away from his desk. Because, this was the point where I was going to introduce him, and now he had to step away for a moment. But anyway, our guest tonight. Yes, now he's back just in time. He's on 9 different trading cards. My goodness. Yes. This is 7 of them. I couldn't put them all on the screen. But he is one of the legends of the industry. And, I kind of thought, is my podcast watched enough for me to even have a guest of this caliber on this pod? Am I suffering from, do I have a case of imposter syndrome? Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see how many views this podcast gets as the night rolls on. But welcome into the Crimeycade for tonight is the great Brian Colin.
Hi there. Oh, man. Sorry I had to run away for a second. I've got grandchildren in the house, and I forgot to lock my basement door. This, of course, gorgeous office I'm in is in my basement right now. So, and we don't want grandchildren, 2-year-olds rolling down the stairs in the middle of the podcast. That just won't work.
Well, you see this guy over here. You see this guy over here.
But I'm sure he always lands on his feet. My grandchildren do not necessarily land on their feet. So I had to go before. But I got back in time. So I get credit for that.
And I need to widen this shot because I want to see this room here. You got, oh, look at this. You got a girl serving beers behind you. This looks like a lot of paraphernalia. There's a statue of this guy, although it's solid gray.
Yeah. So General Chaos. Yes. This is one of the small ones. Well, you've got the smallest one. You've got the smallest one. This is
one he handed out.
Right.
Look at that guy.
I love this guy.
Yeah, these were being given away, I recall, and I ended up with a few of them somehow. Or maybe I won. I won a few of them.
There's only a few left, so
There's only a few left until you
Now
make
that's
another
probably
run.
darn near priceless.
Yes. So we have one thing in common,
What's that?
besides being gamers, or at least interested in gaming. You're a Saluki, and I'm a
I am a
Saluki.
Saluki. I am a Saluki. What year were you?
So officially, I graduated from Southern Illinois University, Carbondale in '92.
Okay, I matriculated, I think is the appropriate word, in 80, well, in 1980, actually.
1980.
Yes.
Gosh, yeah, 12 years. That's a long time.
It's even longer from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, and I went back, let's throw this up here. It's not, I wasn't ready to go to this already, but, might as well. This is, I believe your SIU, I guess you could call it a thesis. I don't know. Your film.
It was not my thesis. It was the year before. This was, I had done a lot of films down there. And, when back in the day when it was film, you had to keep your actors in school long enough to finish the film. And I had an actor drop out, a lead actor on one of my films. So I decided I was going to do an animated film because I could draw. And then it turned out this film, In Search of a Plot, which is about a filmmaker trying to figure out what to make a film about, it ended up winning a dozen international awards. So I'm really glad. I ended up doing this. It was full of bad puns and just parodies of everything from horror movies to porn movies to war movies, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, the same tropes that you created back in this little production ended up in some of your video games later.
Yes, they did.
The most famous of the ones is one Spectre Files.
That's right. That's right. Okay, man, good catch. Good catch on that. Well, do you know the other half of this story about this film and me getting into the video game industry?
So, well, we have their Saluki beginnings. So, yes, the cartoon foreshadowed what was to come later. But let's start with the what was after graduation. I mean, you went to SIU.
Yeah.
After graduation, I guess you went to, what was your degree in officially?
I was a film production major.
Film production. And
Right.
I got out with computer information processing, but I ended up going to Illinois College to get computer science degree because this might be porn. I better be careful here.
No, you're good. It's what was risque 40 years ago is commonly seen on TV today, so you don't have to worry about that. That was the creature from the green latrine. Right.
The toilet ate him.
Yes.
Ate this guy.
Yes, it did.
Wow.
I tell you. I was really pushing the envelope back then.
Well, back then, I guess everybody just kind of was like easily butthurt. Well, people were easily butthurt back then, but now people are easily butthurt today, but under completely different triggers.
Baby's first steps, sister's first date, right there. Okay. And of course, the little kid in this documentary says, "I wet my pants in school today."
Well, he didn't have a change of clothes at school, did he?
Yeah, no.
So he had to spend the day at school with wet pants.
Oh God, yeah.
But anyway,
this was something I did to kind of show a lot of different animation types, and oddly enough, I was had my own little ad agency after college, and I was doing ads in newspapers, and they became very popular. They were followed like comic book or weekly comic strips. And I saw an ad one day at Bally Midway, and they were looking for an animator. And I thought, well, I'm an animator, but why would a pinball company need an animator? And I thought, oh, they want someone to paint on the back of back classes like you do in cell painting in animation. Yeah. Oh, this was good too. My war movie was a pinball machine. Anyway, and I get in there thinking I'm going in for a job as a pinball back class artist. And they said, no, we want you to make art for video games. And I went, Pac-Man? People actually do that?
Yeah.
You need an artist for that? But actually, I was a lot more excited. But I was not really crazy about the idea because what I knew of video games was nothing. But I was an animator, and I knew I could bring the skill set to the job. And I told some of my friends at the time, this is it. Childhood's over. I've got a real job. I mean, prior to this, I was working for beer and pretzels, and they were going to pay me actual money. And I thought childhood's over. I got a real job. And man, was I wrong. Childhood has never been over, and it's never been anything like a real job. And within 2 weeks of working there, I knew I had fallen backwards into the best thing that I could have ever done. And I've been making games for 42 years ever since. But that's where this film played a role in getting me into the industry.
So the question I have,
yes,
was that when you originally graduated from SIU, what did you think you were going to do before you landed where you did?
Because I had been doing ads and in newspapers and for local ad agencies, I thought I was going to be Darren McGavin and marry, Bewitched. I thought I was going to slide into the ad agency because one thing, I was a control freak, which really helps when you're a game designer. But I thought that what I learned in college was when I'm making films and doing everything myself, I could do it. But out in the real world, I didn't think I could jump from here to here. And I know I didn't want to just roll up chords and be a grip. So the fact that I could create humorous ads for people, I figured I would slide into the ad agency. I'd be Darren McGavin. I'd meet Elizabeth Montgomery, and that would be it. I had no idea I would end up in video games. None at all.
Now, prior to landing the job at Valley Midway, did you play any video games or pinball?
I'm old enough that I can say the video game I played was a Magnavox Odyssey, and I played Pong, and it was in color because you had to take a color sheet and stick it on your black and white TV to get the
Odyssey 1.
That was it. My games were like strategy and tactic games, like where you had to break apart 1,000 little pieces of cardboard and spend 4 hours setting them up, and then play Blitzkrieg for another 5 hours. And those were the kind of games I played, or Othello, something real fast and simple. But video games were not part of my mix.
It is quite interesting that you named the Odyssey 1 as the very first video game that you actually owned the console and played it. I don't think anybody else. I have touched it. I have played an Odyssey 1, but it was I think my cousins owned one for a time, and it was. I played the Atari 2600 first, but they ended up with an Odyssey 1, and it was like, my goodness. We're at the end of this little animation here, and what's never changed is they have these. I guess we're not at the end yet.
No, it's the main.
This guy killed himself, or at least
he was killed by the. This last film was going to be about death because it's really a very important part of film. Many a floundering storyline is saved by simply killing off the main character, which is what just happened. So it was. I got a lot of awards for this. It was a funny little film. Unfortunately, we were talking over it, so you couldn't hear any of the best words.
Well, I had it muted the entire way through.
That's smart.
We're just
People
doing
can go and see it
commentary.
find it on the Brian Colin channel on YouTube. And it's, I don't know, it was a milestone for me back in the day. And like you say, it somehow landed me a job in video games.
And this little bit right here, In Search of a Plot, was a plot point in the Spectre Files where the detective, Ed Spectre, goes to the cemetery after wandering through the woods trying to find the missing girl, and ends up at the cemetery, and then he's searching for a plot. And well, yeah, he's searching for a plot, and I guess he got attacked by something if he did not go running back to the house.
That was another. I mean, again, revisiting to my filmmaking days was back when Dragon's Lair came out. I said to the people at Bally Midway, I said, remember, I came from a film background. You give me a budget, I can do an interactive movie. And the head of engineering, John Preserve, said, okay, we'll give you a small budget. And it was just enough to pay for the equipment I had to rent. I brought up some students from SIU who worked basically for next to nothing, minimum wage, maybe $5 an hour. And for several months, and it was enough to rent an abandoned 13-story abandoned mental institution in downtown Chicago that had electricity but no heat in the coldest February on record. And it was a riot to film. I mean, my coworkers like Sharon Perry, who did the art on a lot of Bally Midway games, she put the bow on this Pac-Man. And other people I worked with made this film, and this was an early look of it, but it was the type of thing where you'd go up, the door is locked, do you look under the mat, do you walk around the house? And you know it, I know, Stephen. But and just as we finished the film and finished editing it, Bally Midway got out of the disc industry because one of the executives, they released a big game that they paid a lot of money for, which was NFL football. Mm-hmm. Except one of the executives, to save money, said, we're not doing laser disc, we're buying the much cheaper video disc. And video discs have a needle. And so the first time they shipped the NFL football out and it got bumped, it turned into a $5,000 doorstop. So they said, no, we're no longer making any disc games. And the film sat in my basement for 30 years. And then you know what happened then, I'm pretty sure. Yes,
and most of the footage got recovered. There was a little bit that didn't quite make the video game because of, I guess, quality of the video was just not good enough.
Actually, it was less about the video. There were elements in the original design that said this is going to be film, and we're going to do animated stuff with the hardware of that old arcade game, the Bally Midway MCR hardware, and that will be the dragon breathing fire and stuff like that. So those elements we didn't try to recreate. And just for the viewers' information, how this came back into existence was I was talking to Doc Mack of the Galloping Ghost, and he said, he heard I still had the film, and he said, let's do a restoration of the game. And I said, well, it was never made a game completely. And he said, Brian, you're still making games, aren't you? And I'm like, oh, you want to help me finish this game? So Doc put it together. Well, we put it together, Game Refuge. My company, by the way, is Game Refuge. We're an indie company ever since we left Bally Midway and then Bally Midway Williams. But I forgot what I was saying already. Now, see, once I do a plug and a commercial, now I need 90 seconds to come back.
So Doc encouraged you to pull out, track down all the film canisters, get it digitized, and then
Rewrite.
make it an interactive
Still had
movie.
the original script. We used 95% of that. And that was all the original footage from back in, oh man, forever, like 84, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Shot the original. And it was so wonderful of Doc it was so wonderful for me. And I was very relieved and delighted to hear from Doc from the moment it came out. It was getting played from open to close for years. I mean, people would play that game. And in reality, even if we had released it back when I shot it, it probably would have never gone into production because it does play too long. You get to play for a while and then make your choices. Whereas since Doc's arcade and most arcades now are free play, it's perfect for that kind of thing. And I believe that Doc has released it on Steam as well.
Yes. Now, the bits of the movie game that did not make the cut, the Red Wizard, the Dragon, and then the Devil, two of which were in the music video.
Right. Man, you really find those little nibbly things.
I once CC'd this game, but I don't have the house high. Chris Plackey has the world record on it right now.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And so he finished successfully.
He basically did another run to squeak out another few points.
Okay.
And it was not too long ago, actually. It was a few months ago. I think there was may have been an anniversary of when Sean Quigley passed away.
Oh, Sean. What a guy. Love Sean. Yeah, no, we had a lot of fun making this. But honestly, I've had a lot of fun doing everything I've been doing for the last 42 years making games. Everything has been fun. Doesn't mean it wasn't work. Doesn't mean there wasn't a lot of pain and frustration and teeth gnashing, but you know it's going good when every day you want to wake up and do more of it.
Now, there is also a documentary you were in. And by the way, so I got to throw this up here now.
Which one?
Look how young you look here.
I look exactly the same. I'm pretty sure. That looks just the hair. Yeah, no, maybe. Okay, no, I got no hair anymore. So, okay, I'll just comb my hair down. Now I look exactly the same. See? Yeah.
This was released so the copyright on this video was like 2007. But the footage, 2007 was when it was released. It's probably the footage was shot sooner, but yeah.
We filmed a lot of this stuff, and like after Rampage World, I think there's shots in here of like when Rampage World Tour came out of Jeff Nauman and I at the trade show at that time. So it was filmed over a number of years.
Yes. And oddly enough,
I want to be a video game designer, and that's also on my channel on YouTube. George Gomez.
A couple of Easter eggs. Sound effects from the Spectre Files and a shot of Sharon in full makeup did make this documentary.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. But no one would have known about Spectre Files.
No.
From watching this, but they saw little bitty Easter eggs.
Well, this was shot by an SIU student, Steve Parker. He was a professional cinematographer for a couple of major TV stations downstate in Champaign, and then later he moved up to Chicago. And all of this was shot by him. And I mean, there's Eugene Jarvis talking about, how he got hired. A lot of people talking about how they got hired, what they had to do. Jack Hager's got some great quotes in here. George Gomez has some great quotes in here. It's definitely worth watching if you want to understand arcade history, because these guys are all legends. And well, anyway, I'm glad you found this one. Not too. it's had a lot of views over the years, but not too many people, I think, even know about it now.
Well, I'm glad I stumbled upon this because I was like doing prep work for this podcast. Yeah, I most of the time the majority of the pod I just wing it, but I do write down a few things I have to ask about. Kind of a little bit of an outline, but once I get going, it's like we're long-winded, and then a couple of hours tick by, and it's like I'm doing it completely off the cuff.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Ed Boon back when he was making Mortal 3.
And that is an interesting logo back there. They have the Mortal Kombat logo, but there's a number 3 on top. It doesn't look like the released game.
Oh, I mean, let's face it. When we were working on games, we're working on games for months and months and months. And stuff goes through, iterations. So, the Dragon was created by, I think, he might be your guest next week. I hope I'm not spoiling anything. Paul Niemeyer did the Dragon logo that's so well known.
Yes. Well, we'll spoil it. Hey, did you know that Paul Niemeyer is going to be my guest next week?
And one note to anybody there's Jeff Nauman. He did Rampage and Rampage World Tour with me. Great programmer, excellent at tuning a game, we did this promotional thing for Game Refuge. Except piece of advice: if you're ever doing a demo derby, don't paint your car better than anybody else, or everybody goes at you at the start of the game and you're out in 40 seconds. So,
did you have any involvement with the video game Demolition Derby? And
yes.
I believe that was a Valley Midway game.
That was a Valley Midway game. That was the first time I worked I worked on that. Sharon and Jeff and I did that game. Sharon Perry, Jeff Nauman, and I. Mainly what I did was I brought some of my animation skills so that we could fake scaling that the hardware couldn't do, and then I did the cute girls in between levels. So every time you got up, you got to see a cute gal.
This is fast forwarding a little bit to
10 years later. Jeff and I had left Valley Midway. EA wanted me to come work for them, and I didn't want to move to California. So after about a year of back and forth, and remote wasn't a thing back then, after a year of back and forth, they said, well, what if we just give you the money to start your own company, and then we can work with you? And I'm like, okay, let's do it. So Jeff and I, under good terms, left Valley, which was now Williams Valley Midway. We left, went and did the game General Chaos for EA, which was their #1 original title, non-licensed title that year. And then, but we came back to the new Midway, which is how it was renamed after Williams bought it, and did Rampage World Tour for them. And this was the night we were working. We had about 16 employees at this time, and this was us creating we never missed a deadline. We were very proud of that. And this literally was me filming everything going on the night before we finished Rampage World Tour.
How long did it take to make Rampage World Tour from beginning to end?
I believe it was 13 months. I think we started it in December and ended it in mid-January the next year. So I believe it was 13. Games like the original Rampage were just 3 people working on it, and it would take about 9 months back in those days. Spy Hunter took a little longer, but most games were 9, 10, 11 months tops back in the early days, in 82 and 83, stuff like that.
No, jumping ahead. So some of this footage was at a convention. I thought it was Chicago Consumer Electronics Show, but I guess that it wouldn't have been that year. This is Amusement Showcase, I guess. I'm not sure where this was, but as a kid growing up and getting out of school, wanted to go to the Consumer Electronics Show in Chicago because they unveil all the new video games. And they said, well, the general public's not allowed to attend. And then they had this one year where they were allowed to attend. And then all the vendors started throwing a fit. They're like, we don't want all these, we don't want the general public in on our party. And so,
well, this particular one was operators and manufacturers only. The public wasn't involved in this, but they went crazy back then. I mean, and again, guys that bring their kids, guys that bring their families, but it wasn't, generally speaking, a public event. And again, the Steve Parker and his film crew came to this. You know, I brought them in with me.
Yeah.
And, that it really is. I mean, this was, you know, they were trying to sell that type of thing to an arcade, like someone would bring in an aquarium tank full of gals. And that's the game we had just released. This must have been about 2006. Then you were right about the copyright date, because that's about when we finished Star Trek Voyager.
That game is hard.
Star Trek Voyager?
Yes. I played it up at Underground Retrocade, and it's like I couldn't get very far.
So for those that don't know, the one that we were showing there was the capsule, which is like 6 feet long, and you got inside of it, 2-player, 2 guns, and it's what they call a rail game, which is similar to like House of the Dead, whereas it follows a path, but you see the 3D. Except what we did is it had about 90 different rails to get through a 1-hour game, so that every time you play it, even if you knew how to get through, a stray shot that breaks a light bulb would take you on a slightly different path. So there is a ton of content in that game. I've got one in my garage right now. It's probably my wife's favorite game, and she doesn't play like action games much, but I'll let her know that she could probably kick your butt at it, and then she finds it easy. Oh, and there's a good-looking kid. That's Sharon Perry right there, the animator that trained me when I was hired.
And not the vampire. One vampire.
I'm a vampire. Very effective vampire.
Yeah, it's the first enemy you encounter in the game, usually, unless you go up the ladder outside. And
which we don't recommend.
Well, no, it's short. The game's shorter if you go up the ladder, but that's a spoiler.
Well, one of the things I'm proud of about that game is a lot of games, they kill you, you start over or whatever. At least with Spectre Files, because I was a filmmaker, it's always a complete film. You may die, get knocked out once, knocked out twice, and killed the last time, but it never puts you back to the beginning. You wake up in a new place. You have to figure out where you go from there. So we had a lot of, like I said, we had a lot of fun doing Deathstalker.
Yeah. So Consumer Electronics Show. So yeah, the general public was not invited, but there was a workaround. You had to submit a business card and claim, I don't know, your work for some company, like your distributor or whatever. And of course, and they took it in. They accepted, gave me, I got admission to Consumer Electronics Show, and it ended up being the very last one they ever held. Which I was like, why? I want to just one and done.
Well, the word probably got out that you figured out a way in, and then you probably caused it to close forever.
Well, they kept going in Vegas, but they didn't want to come back to Chicago. I wonder why. Oh, I think the labor unions had something to do with that, with the McCormick Center and their daggum rules. And I think the vendors kind of got tired of it. Well, that's what I heard.
Let's face it. I mean, I think George Gomez in that film, that documentary you were showing, said it best. He pointed out what we all knew back in the day making games for arcades is we have two customers. We got the player with the quarter who wants to live forever, and we got the operators who bought the game and they want to get you off in 30 seconds, and we had to make them both happy. And that was one of the design challenges that I really, and to this day, still love about the arcade mindset is I got to make you happy enough to put in that next quarter. I got to make it, but I've got to let you live long enough, and I've got to make him happy that I'm stopping you, but you're laughing about it, so you're willing to put in that next quarter. And there's something about that type of game that, well, obviously, since that's where I started, that'll always be my favorite challenge is, how do we make sure this happens? And we don't always. I mean, for every game that people know me for, like Rampage or Xenophobe or Arch Rivals or Star Trek Voyager, I've got a good amount of real turkeys and stinkers that we learn from, that you learn valuable lessons from your mistakes. But all in all, I've been lucky. I've been blessed. What makes me laugh has made a lot of other people laugh, and I'm glad of it.
The games that were successful, obviously, Rampage, and this is so I'm going to throw up on the screen the last major release in the arcades of Rampage. This is the third one, and this is based on the movie. Yeah, a modern take on it, and the graphics has been upped, obviously. Kind of likenesses of the creatures in the film. It's on the attract. There we go. Now we're into gameplay. It's on that doggone attract mode. If you want to play this game, you're most likely going to find it at Dave & Buster's.
Right.
I have not found it anywhere else yet.
Right.
And it's Redemption, I think, too.
Could be. I don't know. I've never played it. Never played it.
So this is an interesting question. So what would you say out of all the games that you created, how many of them do you actually play, and are you good at them?
That's two questions. It depends on what I'm doing, who I'm with. If I want to play an arcade game head to head, my favorite is Pigskin. You control like 6 characters. It's rugby, no rules. You've got battle axes. You can fall into dungeons, all that. That's my favorite head to head arcade game to play if I'm playing competitively. Rampage, I play with anybody that comes to my house because it's Rampage, and it's good at parties because it's 3-player. You don't have to, you can cooperate if you want to. You can accidentally punch someone and get into a brawl if you want to. Rampage, and it's the first arcade game that, even though I'd been doing game design before that and doing all the art and animation before that, Rampage is the first game where they let me do the cabinet art as well. So that's like a milestone for me. And when I say I play Rampage more, I actually play Rampage World Tour more because there's more in it. We did that 10 years later, so there's a lot of hidden stuff in it. So that's when I play. If I want to play with a group of friends, there is a game you've probably never heard of. They only released about 100,000 copies, but it was called Arctic Stud Poker Run. And it was a deathmatch battle, racing deathmatch battle game that was full contact poker on hot rocket powered, heavily armed snowmobiles in a 9 square mile perpetual winter in a Cthulhu mythos reality.
That would be the perfect environment for one Phil Hellmuth.
It is. It's a tremendous
poker brat, by the way.
Yeah, no, I know. It was a deathmatch game, but it was more about the strategy. It was for a deathmatch game where it wasn't just about shooting and doing this. You had to use your brain. You had to go out and hunt what you needed. You could put bounties on people and take what they've got. It is my favorite game to play of anything I've ever done. We released it like in 2006, 2007. It was
What's the name of this again? I gotta put this up here on the screen.
It was called Arctic Stud Poker Run, and I just changed my website, and I don't know if you'll actually be able to get to it right now because I haven't moved it over to the new website.
I'm trying to find it on YouTube.
Um,
Arctic Stud.
Look at the
Poker Run.
Brian Colin channel. Brian Colin channel on YouTube. Arctic Stud Poker Run.
Well, it also would help if I spell it correctly.
ARCTIC.
Well,
this is a song from it. Yeah, this is this isn't the gameplay footage though. Yeah, no. Oh, no, no.
There's gameplay footage.
Okay. You pick up cards, but again, this is just little bits of gameplay footage within the song, I think. We went crazy with that. That's Kaiser Snowshoe. You can blow people up. You steal their cards. That was the sponsor of the game, the Evil Brow Brewing Company. The Velcronomicon was the you could cast spells. Anyway, yeah, it was a ridiculous game, and it was a riot to play. You could play it internet multiplayer or LAN player. Unfortunately, it was on the Garage Games original Torque engine, which they no longer support. So unless I get in there and redo it somehow, it can't be played on the as an internet game right now. You can only play it as a LAN game. And if anybody's interested, I'll send them a free copy. It's hysterical. Yeah, it is this is
a highlight reel of gameplay. So, yeah, looks pretty wild. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, so, gosh, let me go backtrack here. So I talked about arcades earlier. You came from SIU. Yes, when I went to SIU, there was plenty of arcades. There was arcades in the student center. There was arcade. There's a Frontier arcade. I can't remember, which street it was, but it was the street that goes in front of the campus. That's gone. There's an arcade in the laundromat. There's an arcade in the mall. That's gone. It's like, where's the arcades in Carbondale now? They're all gone.
Right now, Rampage was in the student center for a while, but again, I was no longer in school there by then. But yeah, when I was in school there, you'd see a pinball machine. I never saw an arcade game while I was in there, like in '74 through '79. So yeah, well, arcades went away, as we all know. And thanks to guys like Doc Mack, they're coming back, but in a little different format.
Yeah, he started in 2010. There were dadgum poker machines also didn't help matters. They're pushing out the arcade games, but
different audience there, though. I think.
You're telling me. Well, they earned more money than the quarter by quarter. So the games, gosh, you did a lot of games. Rampage, Pigskin, what else? Spy Hunter 2. What else? General Chaos, obviously. Disc of Tron.
Right, that was the first game I ever worked on. They hired
Sarge.
Me. Yeah, Sarge.
Xenophobe.
Yeah.
Help
There's
me out
about
here.
80 more.
Yeah, there's a lot more. I don't know if I can get Wacko.
Well, no, I didn't do Wacko. I did Kozmik Kroozer, and management. There was a game out there called Mothership that was dying on test, and I liked the gameplay of it. And I said, but the art is boring, and I'd only been there a few months. Yeah. And so I created on the screen a little cartoon character and called him Kozmik Kroozer. And I pitched it to the programmer, and and management saw it, loved it. I reskinned the game into Kozmik Kroozer, which then made enough money that they released it. And the management liked that little character so much, there was an out-of-house group doing a game that eventually became Wacko. And they said put Kozmik Kroozer in that game too, because they were thinking about making him the new, like not logo, but character. Like they were thinking they'd have another licensable mascot. Exactly the right word. It didn't. It was just in those two games, though. But I didn't actually work on Wacko at all.
And the gimmick with Kozmik Kroozer is they have this spinning spaceship in the background, and if you go up to it and get in the tracker beam when the bonus is lit up, you get
It used that half silvered effect that they used in Discs of Tron to make the Discs of Tron feel very three-dimensional. It didn't work quite as well in Kozmik Kroozer, but it still worked. It still looked pretty cool. It was a neat novelty game.
Swackery is another game you did.
Swackery was great. That was a Dungeons and Dragons game. That was the first game that they called me a designer. Up until then, no one on the floor was ever called a designer. You're an artist, you're a programmer. And they were showing Nolan Bushnell through the offices one day. And I had just finished Swackery with Emil Golan was the name of the programmer. And we had just finished, or we're just finishing up Zwackery. It was out on test, and management came by and said, Nolan, and this is our new game, Zwackery, and this is its designer, Brian Colin. And I'm like, they called me a designer. It's like, went out and changed my business cards the very next day, you know. So, yeah, Zwackery was a fun game. Very rare. Very rare.
It was also so that was unveiled for T20. Back in the first T20 that I participated in.
Really? Okay.
Yes. It was. So the first year I participated in T20, they had a side tournament, and it was almost an entire set of your games. The odd man out was Black Widow.
Okay, yeah, I don't even know Black Widow.
They had, well, for some reason that was in the side tournament, but the other four, including Zwackery, were games you made.
Well, that's fun. I didn't realize that.
Actually, I still have the daggum presentation. I gotta pull it up. T20 games. I gotta pull up the side tournament games. So it was 2016. The lineup was Black Widow, Blaster, another one I didn't even think of, because you also had International Team Laser as the prototype version.
Right.
Kozmik Kroozer, Xenophobe, and Zwackery.
Okay.
And I was in a dogfight with Dwayne Richard on this side tournament. He beat me. It's like we're going back and forth on Xenophobe, and it's like I was trying to get ahead, and he just bested me here.
Xenophobe is an interesting one because, again, you learn from your mistakes. Sometimes you learn from that you can do too good. I did that game with a programmer named Howard Shear. Mm-hmm. And we got the game to the early testing point. Normally they went out on test for 2 or 3 months, and you'd watch them in the arcades. And it did so well on test the first couple weeks. We were really excited. We were about 90% done with the game. But there were, if you remember Xenophobe, it had stuff you could pick up everywhere to like stop the clock and do whatever other different things. But everything you picked up had a purpose in the game that you would be able to use it, similar to the stuff you did in Zwackery. But it did so well on test that management said, no, we want to release it now. And I'm like, no, this isn't in yet. This isn't in yet. So if you ever get a Zwackery and get a hold of the ROMs, you will see dozens of things in the ROMs like spacesuits and other types of aliens and other stuff that didn't get into the game because they liked it so much. It made so much on test that they didn't let us finish it. So, well.
Did they think it was perfect as it was?
That you're talking management. Management and designers were miles apart. They're looking at the dollar sign. I mean, they didn't want to do Rampage. And that game went on to break every earnings records of the day, more than any game it ever made. They told us no. I had to fight like heck to get that game made. Xenophobe made too much money. And perfect example, Xenophobe was our three-player follow-up to Rampage. I did it with a different programmer, but Rampage went up, had huge earnings, and they went on for years because Rampage had so much little stuff that people could come back to it again and again and again. And that's what we wanted to do with Xenophobe. But because they released it with all this other little stuff not in it, it earned the way a game earned back in those days, which is 3 months of high earnings and then drops off. So, in hindsight, would they learn anything from that? I hope they would. But yeah, that's where corporate is very different. They're very appreciative of us for creating the stuff, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to listen to us unless we really kick and scream.
Although nowadays they would release a game, you talk about the stuff that you didn't have time to add, and now they're releasing games and then adding DLC content. And I know Smash TV, people raised holy hell, where's the Pleasure Dome? Where's the Pleasure Dome? And it wasn't in there, but they said, oh, you collect the keys, you can get in a Pleasure Dome. And it's like, well, there isn't a Pleasure Dome. Where is it? And the heat got so hot that they had to release a ROM revision to put them into the game.
Okay.
Did you ever consider doing that for some of the?
And again, no. I'm a game designer.
Yeah.
The idea is the easy part. The creative challenge of how we're going to do this on this hardware with this what we've got to work with. That's the fun part for me. I'm not on the business side at all. A few times I stray over the line with Rampage after fighting to get it done and successfully getting it done. I went to marketing and said, the original Rampage, we pushed that hardware to the limits. Nothing happened at the end. The monsters turned to you and went, arg. That was it. But we did destroy 128 cities. So I said to marketing, great. Let's write letters to every newspaper, every television station in all of these cities saying, your town is about to be destroyed. And of course, marketing said, no. So I wrote them all, and I generated hundreds of articles for Rampage. So sometimes I push beyond what I can do when I'm really feeling passionate, or what I'm supposed to do, when I'm really feeling passionate about something. But the corporate level, and I don't mean this about everybody, but there are always, the more people you got in the mix, there's more people that are only there to say, cover their butt, and they're not going to take a risk. Whereas me as a lonely game designer, it's like, it's in their hands. All I'm doing is making the game. I want to make the game as much fun as I can. Hopefully I'm right, and we'll see the numbers out on test. But the business side of things, I never concerned myself with too much unless I already thought I had an answer. So like I would have never said about Xenophobe, let's release another ROM, because after Xenophobe, I'm doing Arch Rivals. And during Arch Rivals, we got bought out by our biggest competitor, Williams. Yeah. And then finishing it for Williams, this was rumored back in the day, but I only found it, the actual truth came out a couple of years ago. Finishing Arch Rivals single-handedly paid for the buyout. So if we had just finished Arch Rivals before they bought us out, like a couple of months earlier, if Bally had just hung on for a couple of months, they would have not needed to get bought out. But the sales from Arch Rivals paid for the buyout. And there was another one where, from a promotion aspect, like the newspaper thing I did with Rampage, in that one, Jeff and I said, hey, why don't we make it so every operator can change the name of the team, the colors of the team, make it his local high school? And that promote, and Williams, what by now they were Valley Midway Williams. Well, Williams was okay with that. They were, yes, that's a good promotional idea. Let's put it in there. And that was used in small towns all over the country. People will still come to me today and say, yeah, when I played Arch Rivals, it was my high school against the neighboring town high school. And that feels so great to hear, especially 35, 40 years later.
Now, Arch Rivals is a basketball game, but also a beat-em-up basketball.
Well, yes. I like doing games where you're controlling multiple people with like, well, obviously Pigskin and General Chaos. And I had done, even Sarge was you're running from a tank to a helicopter. I liked that feel of stuff. And Jeff Nauman, programmer on Rampage, came up to me and said, Brian, I've got it. Something perfect for controlling multiple players. We can do basketball, 2 players, and they can do this, and they can do real basketball strategies. They can do a pick and roll. And I'm like, Jeff, hang on, stop right there. That'll interest every basketball player in the world or fan in the world. But the arcade's much bigger than that, big, more diverse. I said, you got people like me. You're 6'5". I'm 5'8". If I'm going to play that basketball game, I'm going to need to do something to have a laugh, have a little more fun. So that's why it became the game where you could personal fouls were a big part of the fun and the laughter of Rampage, pulling down the guy's pants. You know, and we carried that onto Pigskin as well.
Now, with the success of Arch Rivals, there were copycats.
Oh yeah.
There are copycats that are trying to, I guess, get in on the concept, but maybe the game didn't turn out so popular. The Arch Rivals counterpart ended up being Konami's Punk Shot.
I'm not even familiar with that.
But it is like Arch Rivals, but on
Really?
kind of like the outdoor basketball court, and the 2 teams are beating each other up, fighting for the ball like Arch Rivals. It didn't do so well. I don't think it did as well. It certainly didn't match the popularity of Arch Rivals, and I didn't last too long at my arcade.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So, I mean, when we did General Chaos, the producer left EA and then called me a few months later and after the success of General Chaos and said, Brian, I just called to ask you, I'm with a different company now. Would you mind if I did a game called Army Men? And of course, then that game, it did well. Punk Shot. Yeah, no, I'm not familiar with that one at all.
Never seen that one.
No.
Yeah, that was released in 1990, and my arcade did have it, but it didn't last very long. It didn't get as much play as other games did. Certainly, Arch Rivals was played, but not this one as much.
Yeah. Well, and again, credit to programmer Jeff Nauman. He was so good at tuning a game. There's one thing to make the game do everything you want it to do from a gameplay and game mechanic, but when you've got a programmer and a designer, he is a designer as well. He tuned games. He got right down into fractions of a second of this is the right amount of tune. This is the right time to do this, and we would. I'm drawing in the morning, creating the art in the morning, walking it across the hall, and then in the afternoon and well into the evening, we are playing. We are saying, no, this should be a hair faster. This should be this. No, that needs to react. So with games like Rampage and Arch Rivals and the earlier ones we did together, Jeff was always really great at tuning a game. And so something could have looked exactly like Arch Rivals in another designer programmer's hands, and it wouldn't have done as well because the player can tell the difference. Players know it as the word feel. Yeah. Does this game have feel? And Jeff was, nobody I've ever worked with has been as good as getting a game's feel to be as good as him.
So I have a question from Jim Patzer. He's not in the chat, but he sent this in. He's would be interested to know how long you continued working on the Rampage series. Rampage World Tour had 2 direct sequels, Rampage 2 Universal Tour and Rampage Through Time. Obviously, we showed the arcade version, but the 2018 arcade game based on the movie. He says Universal Tour is the favorite of the bunch.
Okay, well, they're all based on my creations that I came up with. That I had to prove that the hardware could do something that they said it couldn't do, and I figured out, not a programmer, but I figured out how they could do it. And then so Rampage, we did Rampage, and then we left. We formed our own company, Game Refuge, after Pigskin. But then we came back and did Rampage World Tour. After the success of Rampage World Tour, they said the new Midway, and I think at this point they'd even relocated a lot of their stuff out to California, said they wanted to do another one. Would we do it? And I said yes. We want to do a game that picks up where Rampage World Tour ends, with the monsters shrunk down on the moon and brought back to Earth, and have them break out of their cages and grow to enormous size, like Godzilla size, not just Mighty Joe Young size, and it be a multiplayer that can be played as a PC game, internet land, the whole 9 yards. And Midway said, no, we just want you to add one more guy, one more character. And I said, we've already done this twice. I said, think about it, you'll come back to us. And I just knew they would come back to us. I said, fine, if you just want to add one more guy, find somebody else. So they did. So they didn't come back to us. And
we got Boris here, which is unique to this game.
Right. And again, this is just my game over and over with somebody else adding new, not my game. It is their game. But it is, as you can see, they did almost exactly everything. The shorter buildings, that looks exactly like Rampage World Tour, with somebody else doing the art and adding new characters. And we had already done it twice. And for me, making games is a lot about the creative challenge. And I'd solved everything I wanted to solve. I wanted to take Rampage into full 3D, first person, picking up tanks and shooting with them, multiplayer in a way that you could play from your home against other players. And Midway wasn't interested in that.
Now this was partially a side scroller, because Rampage World Tour
was a side scroller.
Oh, you could side scroll. Okay.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
That was exactly, looked exactly like what they were. They were using, short buildings were like trampolines. They used exactly everything that we did in Rampage World Tour, except Rampage World Tour had dozens upon dozens of hidden things in it. I mean, you could go to hell and eat Hitler in Rampage World Tour. You could find the Ark of the Lost Ark of the Covenant in that secret government warehouse. Could go to Area 51. Yeah, we had a ball with Rampage World Tour.
So, hang on. So for all the games we did get, and you had to fight tooth and nail to get Rampage out to the public, there's some games that didn't quite make it out for one reason or another. Doc Mack actually this afternoon brought up Patooey Louie.
Thanks, Doc. Oh, yeah. Patooey Louie, they wanted a game where you had to slap the buttons real hard, like track and field. And I came up with I wanted to do scaling, and they wouldn't pay for hardware scaling. So I figured out we could probably do it just by the way I figured out we could do it. And we could only to a certain point, but it kind of required them buying a bigger ROM so we could get more sprites. But the game concept was, you are a bikini-clad cave woman riding on the back of with a boomerang, riding on the back of a giant red pterodactyl who's running across the ground eating watermelons. And then you would leap into the air and spit watermelon seeds and throw boomerangs at giant invisible killer bees. And I have no idea why that didn't just take off. No pun intended. It was just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Unfortunately, Bally refused to pay for the bigger ROM size. So the bees you couldn't even see until they got close to you, and then you could see them just as a second. So it ended up it went out on tests and it failed miserably. So yeah, not everything I've done has been a winner. Now that one I'd love to revisit.
Yeah, because the technology now, probably you could pull it off real easily.
Yes, I could.
Uh, I was hoping to find prototype screenshots, but I guess none exist out there.
All I've got is the header art that I created for it. I mean, back then, if we wanted to take pictures of the screen, we had to use film and our little disposable cameras, and very little exists of my stuff from that era.
Was there any other games that you made that you wished had come out but did not?
Ant Raid.
Ant Raid.
Ant Raid. It was. I came up with the concept. Well, a hardware guy named Atish Ghosh came up with the concept. It was just like a paragraph on a piece of paper. I hadn't been working at Bally Midway very long. I asked Sharon where the ideas come from, and she said, well, we've got some here on paper. And I said, why aren't we doing this? It was real-time strategy. 2 anthills fighting over food in a garbage dump. And she said, well, no one wants to do it because, an ant it's just ugly little ants. And I said, no, make them cartoony. So I did a big cartoony ant. Management loved it, hired a programmer, assigned them to it. Actually, a couple of programmers worked on it, but it only got to the point, and it became a very fun 2-player game where you sent out worker ants and super soldiers and everything to fight over and it was really cute. It was really funny. I got the header for that one too still. And there it is. Unfortunately, they put it out on test when it was just a 2-player game. The programmer had never created a 1-player version. So a game out in the arcade where you had to have 2 people playing it just didn't make enough money, so the project was abandoned. And that's probably the first time it is the first time I ever got the bug in my system is I want to control multiple characters like we did then in Sarge and like we did in Arch Rivals, Pigskin, and then of course General Chaos.
I think General Chaos did make it out the door, but in a different form.
General Chaos was the first game we did as an independent company, Game Refuge, for Electronic Arts. It was for the Sega Genesis system. It was their #1 original non-licensed title, so it sold a lot of games. And of all even though I'm probably best known for Rampage, I get more mail to come and redo General Chaos than any game I've ever done. It was you control 5 guys, the other players controlling 5 guys, telling, okay, you go here, you go here, you go here. You tell them to shoot, they shoot. Yeah, Patooey Louie. There's the header for Patooey Louie.
Yeah. So, continue on Ant Raids. So there were Ant Raid games that came out, but they weren't.
They weren't mine.
No. But probably similar concept, maybe. I'm not sure, but I know they came out. I went looking for Ant Raid on. They created an app on Google Play. God grief. Let me look. So this, they released came out Finland, apparently. A game similar. 104 levels. Defend the base from enemies such as snails and giant bees by strategically managing squads of ants.
Yeah.
Kind of maybe similar. I'm not sure. All right.
Mine was cooler.
What was the biggest disappointment of the games that did make it out the door? That didn't do very well, but they were released.
I didn't have too many of those. If it made it, I did games that if they didn't do well on tests, they didn't get produced. But if it got produced, they all made money. Not all made Rampage money or Arch Rivals money, but they all made money. International Team Laser was never produced, even though we created it for an international convention in Europe. But so we turned it around and turned it into Blasted, which did make money. trying to think. Biggest disappointment was probably Zwackery, even though everybody that plays it loves it and everybody that has one. I mean, there are collectors that collect multiples of them. But it was released ultimately on a hardware. It was an experimental hardware that they only had a few hundred units of. So even though it earned a lot of money, they only released a few hundred of these games, which I think if they'd released it on the original hardware we created it on, they would have sold thousands. So that's a disappointment, but not because it didn't do well. That was a disappointment in management.
Okay, so Zachary was created on different hardware than it was originally released on.
Right.
How is it different?
It was hardware that it had been created for another game that went bust. And though we had created it for their mainstream hardware, management had these boards laying around and said, no, we're going to release it on this. So literally a few weeks before it was supposed to go into production, one of the main executives came up, hey, Brian, good news. You've got new hardware. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this new hardware? The game is done. It's, out on test. It's scheduled for production. Well, yeah, but now you can do higher resolution this. It's like, I've been working on this for 9 months. I can't do anything in 2 weeks. So if you actually look at his Zwackery, the font of the background font, we had twice the resolution. Mm-hmm. So I could do like Gothic looking Old English characters. That's about the only thing that I was able to take advantage of in the last 2 weeks. It was mainly them getting rid of hardware they had lying around that they had developed for something else that failed. So as far as I know,
the game I thought was the biggest disappointment, I had to think, would be Spy Hunter 2. Would you agree?
I would say that it is not a disappointment because everybody that was pulled into the first meeting didn't want to have anything to do with it.
Uh-oh.
And it came down to musical chairs and myself, and I was one of the guys that didn't get out of his chair fast enough. So I was able to work on it. I don't think there was anybody that was in that original design meeting that thought it was ever going to be a good idea. We were doing a driving game with hardware that wasn't designed to do a driving game. Yeah. We were trying to do all kinds of things that we knew going into it. It was scaling, and we knew we didn't have enough sprites for scaling, similar to what I was saying with that Patooey Louie.
Yeah.
So it's not really a disappointment to me. It's kind of amazing to me that it ever got released, because it was not a very. There was not much to the game, and what there was to it was not particularly as it wasn't. It was
not enough depth
to do it, but it wasn't anything that I think any of us were terribly proud of.
And it was two player head to head, kind of like
yes,
is split screen,
right?
Which was also used in a game called Max RPM.
Max RPM came first.
Yes,
Max RPM was kind of the test game to see if we could do it. I think the programmer on that was a real gearhead. Lover of cars. I think that game might have even had a clutch just to make it a little harder to play. And Max RPM, it was just a race game. So it did do everything we wanted to do. And we were kind of I was pleased with how it came out. It's just that Spy Hunter 2 is the sequel, not the sequel, but using that same format. Everybody knew going into it that we weren't going to be able to, why call it Spy Hunter when Spy Hunter was such a perfect game, such a beautiful skill-based, I'm in the zone, I'm going to live forever, bam! And then you've got this game that is going to be at every level a disappointment to the name.
Kind of like 3D, which is why it didn't have, which was why, I guess that's why the track mode did not have gameplay footage.
Yeah.
Because it would just cycle between a few screens, but never show the game itself as like, and you couldn't see it until somebody put a quarter in and played it,
Right. Yeah. No.
which was
Like I said,
strange.
that was something that I think if I ever believed it was going to be a great game, that would be a huge disappointment. But I don't think anybody that worked on it really expected it to do well.
Okay, so you've been at it for how many years now?
I started in 1982.
1982.
Tron was the first game I worked on. I was working on that and Spy Hunter at the same time. What a lot of people don't realize too is that that original team, the Bally Midway team, we were all like just one big, even though it was different groups of 2 or 3 or 4 people working on different games, everybody was helping everybody out. Everybody was pulling for everybody else. It was a real kind of Wild West, almost family feel back in those days. And 1982, and animators like me got to work on everything. So I got to work on, what's really cool that I want to work on, and this one that's really cool because the programmer's hyped. And I also got to work on ones where the programmer didn't care and he was putting in minimum effort. So I became a designer kind of out of self-defense because I only wanted to work on something that everybody that was working on it was passionate about. Right. And as a designer, I could kind of pick and choose and keep people pumped up, and that's part of the fun of being on the design side.
So you've been at it since '82. You've seen, multiple generations of gaming. From where you started to where things are now, how do you feel about it? What do you think? It's on a good track, bad track? Did you think gaming would evolve would have evolved the way it has, or is there some direction it needs to go to?
So that's a great question. I wish I had a great answer, but the fact of the matter is, I don't follow gaming. I don't know what's going on.
Gaming, but you're making games still.
That's right. I am what I am doing is, if a client comes to us and said, I need this, I want, who's your audience, who's going to be playing it, what do you need it for, what are you trying to say, what do you want to get accomplished, and then I'll go, I've got something that can make this wonderful, or this is something that anybody else can do or somebody else can do. I've been very lucky and very blessed to be able to work on stuff for 40 years that if I can bring something to it, I know I'm going to have a fun 9 months or 12 months working on this. And that's something that, we do. That's what we do. And they all pretty much have turned out great. Whether it's been for casinos, I'll do games for casinos. I'll do games for corporations selling heavy machinery. I'm still doing arcade games from time to time.
Yeah.
I don't follow the industry. For me, the last time I would say I was actively playing games is, we're talking, the turn of the century. Anymore, I'm working on games. I'm thinking about the next game I'm working on, or maybe I've got multiple projects that I'm divided between. The only thing I know about anything that's going on in the industry is when one of my kids or one of my employees says, hey, look at this. Because I'm not a guy who wants to spend 3 months playing through a game. I appreciate them. I will sit and watch them and go, wow, this is really fun and really cool or whatever. But I don't know what's going on in the industry. I'm focused mainly on what I'm making and how I can make it more fun. So I wish I had a better answer for you than that. I couldn't tell you where it's going or how it got there, other than you've got a better idea and probably more opinions on that than I do.
Due to time constraints, yes, I kind of need to play games in a short burst, which is why I seem to be on the arcade game kick right now. The classic arcade games. The newest console I have, or at least that I've actively played, was the Nintendo Wii. I don't have a Switch. I don't have a Switch 2. I certainly didn't get the Wii U. I didn't get the Xbox One. I didn't get the PS4 or 5. I've got an arcade restore project in my garage sitting there right now that I haven't really gotten far into. which I'm going to bring up on this pod sometime in a later edition of this pod when it's actually playable. But yeah, the classic arcade games. It's like I can't play a game for 3 months or 6 months like Zelda. And certainly the newest Super Mario game takes months to go through, which is insanity. Because I kind of have to find every little thing in it. I'm not a speedrunner.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, but I've got grandkids trying to sleep right above me right now, so I think it's about time. Can we wind this up, or is there
let's wind
more
this up
things that I can answer for you? But I can't get too loud at this point anymore.
Okay. I kind of figured we'd wrap. I kind of figured we'd go until about 10. So yeah, we're about 20 minutes away. So we'll kind of start winding this down because there's a few things I needed to ask you. The documentary, how to be a game designer. You say you don't follow anything. I did have noticed in the past few years that I guess the bar for game designers has gone down, and because the people who are making games lately don't actually love video games, they don't like the people who play the games. And it's been kind of showing with these AAA titles, and they're shelling out like hundreds of millions of dollars to develop these, and then they end up flopping. I mean, does that what when you hear that, what do you think? What are you thinking?
Like I say, I don't hear that because I don't follow games, and I don't follow what's going on. I mean, the people that I know personally that are breaking into the industry are excited and passionate, and I feel. But again, these are people that I personally know or have approached me personally, and very much they are passionate and excited and love the players as much as I do and appreciate the fact that they get to do this. I have talked to people who, as you say, only care about what they didn't get or what they're owed or what they should have got or what they, I've made only this many million off of these games and now I'm retired. It's fine. I'm happy they made their money and I'm sorry they didn't get more joy out of what they're doing. But I can't say that designers as a whole are one way or the other because I only know the people I know. And most everybody I know, like from the old days and the new ones coming up, are passionate, are happy about what they're doing, are wishing they could do more, and definitely love the people that play the games. So again, but I don't read articles and stuff like that and about what everybody else might be doing because I don't have time. I'm working on the General Chaos sequel. I barely have time to do any normal things in my life right now because I am trying to get this one last game finished up.
Okay, so we're expecting coming down the pike, General Chaos 2.
Major Snafu.
Major Snafu. That's the game
General
that's
Chaos
upcoming.
2, Major Snafu, yeah.
Okay, and that's the only one upcoming, correct?
Probably. It's the last one I'm planning, although I've been approached to do some casino gaming work after that. But in terms of real games meant for players, General Chaos 2 Major Snafu is the one where about 2/3 of the way done in terms of the core game. And all the old characters are in, got a bunch of new characters we've created. We've got the levels, the game loop is done. They're out there shooting their machine guns or the Scorcher's got his flamethrower and the Launcher's got his, it's the same old game with a lot new stuff and a lot of the technology that you couldn't do with the Sega Genesis controller. Now it's a PC game. You can play it with an Xbox controller. You can play it with keyboard and mouse. It's a multiplayer game and bigger levels, but still just immediate battle. You're not spending hours setting things up for one big battle. You're in a battle after battle after battle after battle, just like the original. It's real-time strategy plus comedy, and that's what the one we're working on. And this is starting to sound like a commercial, but if you don't mind.
No, it's fine.
We've been working remotely for a while now. And as such, I hate working remotely.
So do I.
Working in the, especially on a game. On a game, you want to be able to turn to Dom and say, okay, Dom, what do you think of this? Bobby, what do you think of this? Manny, come on over here, look at this. Or I'll go over and stare at someone's screen. Sam, we got to do that. Oh, and you bounce that stuff around, and that keeps everything fresh and everything immediate. Weekly Zoom meetings or even bi-weekly Zoom meetings where everybody's sitting there looking at everybody else's face and eventually get off target and everybody's going, okay, I got to be done by, I got to go now. And it's not the same. So just recently, a couple of the people have become available so that we're actually working here right now. And I want to so we're going to do a crowdfunder probably next month. We're launching a crowdfunder to get just a little bit of money because everything we've been doing so far has been pretty much coming out of my own pocket. Just to get a little money to get everybody in the same office space.
Right.
And then, because just getting a couple people in here now on a regular basis, it's going 10 times faster. So we're about 2/3, 3/4 of the way done. If I can get everybody into the same office, we are going to fly to the finish line on this thing, and it's going to give fans a chance to say, hey, do you want to see this in here or do you want to see this in here? You want to see both in there? Great. So that's what we're doing coming up on that. And I don't know if I just took your question and ran in the other direction with it.
No.
So I apologize.
Good. You got some conventions upcoming?
Let's see. Yes, I do, is the short answer. I've got a couple of speaking engagements in communities around Chicago coming up, one in Elk Grove Village, one in Lockport in July. In August, I think I'm doing the Phoenix show in Appleton, Wisconsin. I'm doing, I'm going to be doing one in Detroit that I was out of town, stuck in a hurricane, and I missed it last year. I was supposed to do it last year. I'll be doing that one in Detroit. I'm doing Pittsburgh. I wish to heck I had my sheet in front of me so I could actually say the accurate names of them, but I don't have that. So I'm doing, and I'm doing Effingham, downstate Illinois, Effingham as well, and then probably going to be doing another Midwest toy and comic in September.
Yeah.
So that's August.
I forgot what town it was in, but
yeah, I forgot. So
I think it was
I have
maybe.
Shows coming up starting August, September, October. Actually, those 3 months are pretty full.
Now, you were at the Game and Geek Expo last weekend.
Yeah, that was fun.
There's been a lot of online chatter about that one. They said that. What do you think the draw was? Somebody claimed 1,000 people showed up for this.
The Raleigh fans were great. I feel like I've heard about the online chatter from you, and then I went and looked some stuff up. I feel like this was a group that had been doing yearly shows and finally decided to do a big show. And if there was any problem that I really saw, it was that they got too big of a space.
Yeah.
They had enough vendors, they had enough guests, they had enough attendees. The first day was, but the space between the aisles, because it was such a huge space, they were like 40 foot. An aisle was 30 to 40 foot wide.
Yeah.
Which it wasn't that more kind of intimate show where I'm looking on both sides as I'm walking down, and I can walk from here to here. So it had more of a. It looked. I would just say, next year, I would say, hopefully they size the space better. I talked to one of the, and their staff was tremendous. I talked to one of the staff, and they were saying they were going back and forth on. It was one of these places where it could be this big or this big, and they chose the bigger one. And I think it was a mistake to not choose the smaller one just for the intimacy you want in a show like that.
And this is basically quasi drone footage without a drone. It's just my camera on a pole, high as I could lift it. Kind of a fly through of the Illinois Game Con. Yeah, they probably would have done better with this amount of space.
Right. That's where I think shows do best is you don't want them too tight because they could get really crowded, and that's gonna. But the more I feel it's more intimate if your space is, and I would say their space was easily 2 to 3 times that wide on each aisle. So even though they had a ton of vendors and they had a good staff and they had a pretty good attendance for a first time show, I feel it looked less like a robust show than it really was.
Like Missouri Game Con, they were at American Legion Hall year 1. Then they moved to Family Arena the next year, and the arena was too much space. Then they contracted down to a college gymnasium.
I think I was at that one. I would think I was at that one. It was a good show for me.
And then they moved to the park in Manchester. So, and I'll be going back. Are you going to Missouri Game Con?
I only go where I'm invited. So, and typically I if I can work it out between my work schedule and if I haven't already signed up for something else, I'm one of these guys. I'm old enough that I kind of feel weird in saying, "Hey, do you want me to come?" So if I get invited, I always consider it, and sometimes I get invited and I just can't do it because of family things or work things. But yeah, and I did the MoCon 1 year, and it was a good year for me. They were good people.
All right, well, you're pretty much in demand. I know that much. And I think everybody's beating down the door to try to get you at some point or another. But oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to remove that. Yeah, you can't be at the same convention every year. You missed. You went down to Arizona same time that Midwest Gaming Classic was going on.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. I mean, Game On was great. It was great going back to that because I haven't been in a few years, and then but it was it came at a cost because I love doing Midwest Gaming Classic. So I'm hoping next year they're not on the same weekend.
Well, you can't be at the same con every year because the staleness factor. I mean, sometimes you have to go somewhere new.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean, sometimes you do too many cons in a row. They're always fun. I mean, Let's face it. I loved going to a con. It's just nice hearing that people still remember stuff I did 30, 40 years ago. But sometimes if you do it too many years in a row, I can only bring so much. I bring my prints and my posters and my toys, and it's wonderful to see everybody again. But if they've already got my stuff that they want, well, maybe it's time to go somewhere else that weekend. So, but yeah, it's fun to do. I would do it all the time if I could get away with it. As it is, like I say, right now my main thing is trying to finish General Chaos Major Snafu.
Any future goals besides General Snafu or Major Snafu? Any goals you have that you want to fulfill?
Oh, well, there's a feature film that I've been working on a script with a filmmaker that I spent a we spent a good deal of time on it last year, and I hope to pick it up again this year. It'd be a very interesting feature film. That's all I can say about it. What else? Like I said, there's someone that would like me to do a casino game for them based on a patent I got years ago.
Right.
They're not so much goals as the film script was fun to work on, just because, again, it might be a return to film. The casino game could be very profitable because casino games generally make more money. The only downside of a casino game is there's no skill involved. So
yeah.
So that's that. But again, if I look at that as a creative challenge, well, yeah, maybe that'll make it fun. I don't have any real goals. I have grandkids now, so my goals are every day is, staring in their little faces and being Grandpa Goose, So that's what I hope to be doing more of once I get some of these game projects out of the way.
All right. Anything you wanted to bring up that I forgot that I did not cover before we wrap it up?
No, we touched on General Chaos 2, Major Snafu, Kickstarter. Well, probably Kickstarter, crowdfunder coming next month. Look for that. If you're an old General Chaos fan, and I know there's hundreds of thousands of you out there that played it and loved it back in the day, call up the buddies that used to beat the crap out of you and challenge them to a new version once the crowdfunder comes out. What else? Game Refuge. You can visit Game Refuge, the website, www.gamerefuge.com. We finally have this security on the end of the HTTP, so you can get it without worry. But I haven't updated it, I think, since the Rampage movie. But we will be doing that in the weeks to come too, with some new news there. That's about it. I mean, you touched on a whole lot more than I thought you would. So this has been fun. Thanks.
You know what? I've been gaming. I've been a gamer for how many years now? Since childhood. I have multiple championships under my belt. Well, I have the belt. I have a few belts, literally. Is there any of your games that are not a Galloping Ghost besides Voyager that were released in the arcades?
Well, I've done a few redemption games. They'll never be at Galloping Ghost.
Yeah, those don't count, actually.
Recently did a new arcade game for an arcade down in Florida called Spooky Smashers, which is a cartoon fighting game. That's not at Galloping Ghost. And then, of course, I keep trying to loan my Star Trek Voyager 2-person 6-foot monster capsule to Doc, but he won't take it on loan. He only wants to buy it from me, and I won't sell it. So I don't know.
Maybe it will be in the Vault series.
We'll see.
Because he's about out of space. There's only a few more games he's going to put on the floor, and then it's going to be the Vault series. So maybe Voyager can make its debut at the Galloping Ghost Arcade as part of the Vault series because it won't stay on the floor.
If he'll let me loan it to him, I mean, I'll loan it to him for free, but he doesn't want. He wants to buy it. He's like, I'm not taking any games that I don't own. I guess he's worried that he would, it would get ruined, and then he'd be obliged to me. No, he's got a tremendous collection of my games, and not all of them are just in the Brian Colin section there.
Yeah,
but some of them show up all over the arcades. So
right.
Doc's tremendous. Doc is tremendous, and actually, he might know. The question might be better directed at him. Are there any games out there of mine that he doesn't have? So, because he restored that Zwackery completely that he's got. Because like I say, that's a very rare one.
Yeah. Well, it's got unique artwork because you redid the art for that one. That cabinet.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. All right. Brian Colin, I want to thank you for joining me here tonight. And I didn't feel like I had imposter syndrome doing this interview. Uh, that
I
was a term that I was given by a prior guest that thought I'm portraying myself to be much bigger than I actually am.
well, I like I said, I was delighted by where your questions went, and I was amazed that of some of the stuff you pulled up or pulled out of nowhere or pulled out of your somewhere. Yeah, so thank you for a fun night,
I like to ask questions that other people aren't asking. Let's
and you
put it
did,
that way.
and you
And
did.
yes, I did look at past interviews and saw what was covered, and it's like I didn't see this come up. I didn't see this come up. Let's ask that question and kind of mixed it in with the current stuff. So accomplished.
I'd say job well done.
All right, Brian. I hope to see you around the Galloping Ghost arcade soon.
I'm sure we'll run into each other there again.
All right, Brian. Have a good night.
Have a great night. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Bye bye.
That was Brian Colin, the legend of many of the Valley Midway arcade games and a member of the Midway Monsters. Yes, I named your clique the Midway Monsters. We had to come up with something because next week we got another one of your colleagues joining me on the pod. And now I have to go for the trifecta at some point in the future. But I haven't asked the third person in your clique yet, so we'll see what happens.
Good luck with that. Good luck. I don't know. Those guys are all nuts. Not normal like I am.
Everybody thinks I'm crazy, but I don't know. All right, have a good night, Brian.
Have a good one. Have a good
All
one. Bye bye.
All right, Brian Colin, thank you for joining me tonight. So, a little bit on the back end. Let me take this down for a second. Get this banner down here. Okay. Little thing on the back end, and I gotta get this screen back up here. I don't have. Hold on. Screen. Share screen. I was trying to get my slideshow back up. Here we go. So, close it out. Yes, Arcade Wars is. One Up Arcade Australia has closed down, has sold most of their games, but they're still doing Arcade Wars, and I'm starting to question whether this really needs to keep going. I was the only one to play the game last month, but the game of the month now is Galaxian, and Underground Retrocade, of course, has fully qualified. The Guardcade's put one score in, but nobody from Galloping Ghost yet. It's all about the challenge cards right now. I was trying to find my little challenge card, but I don't have it handy. But challenge cards seem to be a thing, and that's what everybody's worried about right now. The chase for tokens continues on, and Andrew Owasco continues to add to his total as Professor Token Taker. I'm a little ahead of Jamie Tibbetts, so I'm going to be fighting up for fourth place with him. And the power rankings, no, we're down to 2 months. 2 months to go before we have our the next Gamer of the Year is awarded. As it stands, yeah, this is your top 20, and Andrew Wasco still sitting at top, but some jockeying around down the list. I'm trying to move up from 10th and get back up to 8th because it's not much of a jump, but it's getting a score and holding on to that score has been the challenge. And it's been difficult to take scores lately for me. But Gamer of the Year odds, not really a change here. 2 months to go. I don't see this changing at all. Andrew Owasco looking for his third title. Ben Falls, who's been getting some key scores, Although, yeah, the last one he took was one of mine. Yeah, Turbo Miss Pac-Man on the Class of 81 cabinet. I now have to kill screen it, and I've never kill screened the game. But I set a personal best of 517,000. But the last weekend I was out there, I did not get above. I did not improve my score at all. And getting to a kill screen even with turbo speed is easier said than done. And then the winner of T20, even odds with Andrew and Ben Falls. Ben Falls is on, I believe, his third challenge card right now, level 3. But if Zeus win T20 again, I do not recommend him getting it a third time in a row. I don't think the crowd would. I don't think the crowd was not. I know how the crowd was feeling last time around. I don't think it would go over a third time. John Liming taking the train up from St. Louis to play the Goblin Ghost every, maybe once a month or every couple of months. But apart from these contenders, it may be somebody completely out of the blue, or it could be nobody. Nobody wins the title. In fact, last year I thought the argument was stronger that no one wins the title, but it ended up going to Justin Vithel, Zeus. So it's still wide open. The Gamer of the Year, you want that title? You better grind. You better start grinding, and grinding quick, because there's only 2 months to go. You're going to have to get the wow factor out of Doc Mack to get that belt. Trust me on that one. And next week, here he is. Yes, I had the first member of the Midway Monsters. Well, John Parrish is a Midway Monster, but he's a Mortal Kombat actor. But next week, yeah, how did this happen? I actually got this locked down last night. Paul Niemeyer, the graphic designer of many Bally Midway games, along with Brian Colin. But it also includes, the key one, Mortal Kombat. And yes, he's been having issues with Warner Brothers over that logo. And that will be a topic next week. We may get the full story on why Warner Brothers was picking a fight with Paul Niemeyer and the Mortal Kombat actors over Mortal Kombat. We may get that full story on stream for the first time. I'm going to ask about it next week. So tune in. June 19th, Juneteenth. Yes, it's a holiday. 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central Time. I hope you can be here. Now, I have booked a guest further out. Lindsay Lowers. She is LL Cool Games on YouTube. I met her for the first time face-to-face at the Midwest Gaming Classic. It's like I was walking around the convention floor. I walked over to the corner where there was the bonus stage, and there she was. Unexpected. So I stopped and listened to her panel to talk to her after her panel was over, and she was covering parenting and gaming. But she also has a YouTube channel, so we'll have her in Thursday, June the 26th. She actually pitched joining the podcast months ago, but finally got it booked, and she will be here in 2 weeks. So be interesting. And that'll do it for this edition of the Crimeycade podcast. Let's see. Should we raid a channel? Can we raid a channel? Let me see who's still with us tonight. Let's see. I want to thank everybody. Let's see let me see the users in the chat that came out. Jet Cogs, the Merge of Death 666, tuning in for the first time. Stupendous man. That's Claudio. expect to see Claudio at the Galloping Ghost Arcade a lot more in the near future. And he could, if he makes a run, he could make a run for the Gamer of the Year title. We'll have to see. Anything can happen, and an exciting finish to the what are we up to? The 15th season of the Galvin Ghost Arcade, and yes, wow. Anyway, that'll do it for the podcast for tonight, and I will raid a channel. Who am I going to raid? Let's. Well, he's not playing at this moment, so he's on a break. So I'm going to raid this channel. I'm going to raid. Oh, they're playing Ninja Gaiden, Lick Arcade. I'm going to raid Lick Arcade. They're playing Ninja Gaiden Ragebound Demo. I want to thank you, everybody, for joining the pod tonight, and have a good evening, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Let's see if I can get my closing credits up on the screen. Here we go.